My name is Eric Dalton, and I used to believe in fairy tales. Not the Disney kind with singing mice and happy endings, but the adult version where hard work, loyalty, and keeping your mouth shut would eventually pay off. Where being the good guy meant something. Where your wife didn't post pictures of your anniversary gift on Instagram with the caption, "When he tries but misses the mark by about 3 tax brackets, LOL." That was 6 months ago. Today, I'm what you might call a reformed optimist. I'm sitting in my home office at 7 in the morning, coffee growing cold, staring at my laptop screen. Haley's latest post is already getting likes, 43 and counting. The gift in question? A pearl necklace I saved 3 months to buy. Not Tiffany, sure, but real pearls from a reputable jeweler downtown. The kind of gift that used to make her smile before she started measuring everything against her boss's expense account. Greg Pumphrey, or as Haley's friends call him, Pumper. The nickname alone should have been a red flag the size of Texas, but I was still playing the trusting husband back then. Still believed that 10 years of marriage meant something. Still thought that the woman who used to laugh at my terrible jokes and steal my hoodies on Sunday mornings wouldn't publicly humiliate me for internet points. The comments are rolling in now. Tasha, Haley's best friend and professional mean girl, leads the charge. "Girl, you deserve so much better." Some men just don't get it. Jennifer, the enabler who nods along to everything, adds her usual, "You're too sweet, Haley." Way too understanding. I screenshot everything, old habits from my engineering background, document everything, trust nothing to memory. In my profession, assumptions ruin projects. In marriage, apparently, they just destroy you slowly. My phone buzzes. Text from Pete, my best friend since college and the only person who still calls me by my last name. Saw the post. Want me to come over and help you hide a body? I type back, "Not yet." Still deciding whose. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. The thing about being married to someone in public relations is that everything becomes a performance. Every dinner out gets photographed. Every vacation becomes content. Every gift gets evaluated not for its thought or meaning, but for its social media potential. I used to find Haley's online presence charming. Look at my successful, beautiful wife, sharing our life with the world. Now I realize I wasn't sharing our life. I was providing material for her personal brand, and apparently, I was the comic relief. The front door slams. Haley's heels click across our hardwood floors like a countdown timer. She appears in my office doorway, already dressed for work in an outfit that costs more than my monthly car payment. Her blonde hair is perfectly styled, makeup flawless despite the early hour. She looks like the kind of woman who has her life together, who married well, who deserves better than discount jewelry. "You're up early," she says, not looking up from her phone. "Couldn't sleep." I close my laptop. "Saw your post." "Which one?" But she's smiling that particular smile, the one that says she knows exactly which one, and she's proud of it. The anniversary gift review. "Oh, that." She waves a manicured hand. "It's just social media, Eric." Don't be so sensitive. Just social media. Like our marriage is a Yelp review and she's warning future customers about the service quality. I want to ask her when she became this person, when my wife turned into someone who measures love in brand names and judges thoughtfulness by price tags. Instead, I say, "Right. Just social media." She's already moving on, scrolling through her phone. "I'm having drinks with the girls tonight." Don't wait up. The girls. Tasha and Jennifer, her Greek chorus of enablers who've never met a man they couldn't find fault with, or a problem they couldn't make worse. They've been having a lot of drinks lately. Always celebrating something, a promotion, a new client, the end of the week, the middle of the week, days ending in Y. Where are you going? That new place downtown? Meridian? Greg recommended it. Of course he did. Greg Pumphrey, her boss at Sterling Communications, the man with the golden tongue and the platinum credit card. 44 years old, married to a socialite named Rachel, drives a BMW that costs more than I make in a year. The kind of man who recommends restaurants because he's taken other people's wives there. I should have seen it coming. The late nights at the office, the sudden interest in fitness, the way she started pronouncing my name like it left a bad taste in her mouth. But I was busy being the good husband, working overtime to pay for the lifestyle she was growing accustomed to, trusting that the woman I married was still in there somewhere. Have fun, I say. She pauses at the doorway. For a second, I think she might say something real, something that acknowledges what's happening between us, what's been happening for months. Instead, she says, "Try not to wait up feeling sorry for yourself." It's not attractive. And she's gone, leaving me with the scent of expensive perfume and the sound of the garage door opening. I sit there for a long moment, listening to her car pull away, and I realize something has shifted. The hurt is still there, sharp and familiar, but there's something else now, something colder. I open my laptop and look at her post again. 47 likes now. The comments are multiplying, each one a small knife twist from people who don't know me, don't know us, but are happy to judge based on a photograph and a caption. Then I notice something interesting. Haley forgot to check her privacy settings. Her direct messages are visible in the screenshot she posted. Just a corner of them, but enough to see a name, Greg P., and the beginning of a message. "Can't wait to see you in that dress I bought." I lean back in my chair and smile for the first time in weeks. Document everything, trust nothing to memory. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, people document themselves. My phone buzzes again. Pete. "Seriously though, you okay?" I type back, "Never better." Actually, I think things are about to get very interesting. Because here's what Haley doesn't understand about engineers. We're problem solvers. We look at systems, find the weak points, and figure out how to make them work better. Or, if necessary, how to make them fail completely. And I've just identified a very interesting weak point in my wife's carefully constructed social media empire. The thing about discovering your wife's affair is that it doesn't happen all at once, like in the movies. There's no dramatic moment where you walk in on them in your bed or find a love letter in her purse. Instead, it's a slow unraveling, each small betrayal adding up until you can't ignore it anymore. I spent the next 3 days doing what I do best, research. Greg Pumphrey, Senior Vice President at Sterling Communications. Married to Rachel Whitmore Pumphrey, daughter of a city council member, patron of various charities, the kind of woman who has never worked a day in her life, but somehow always looks exhausted. They live in Harbor Heights, the kind of neighborhood where the HOA fees cost more than most people's rent. He drives a 2023 BMW M5, license plate PUMPR1, because subtlety is apparently not his strong suit. Member of the Riverside Athletic Club, where the monthly membership costs more than my gym's annual fee. His Instagram is a masterclass in midlife crisis, workout videos, expensive dinners, photos of his car, and recently a lot of pictures from Sterling Communications team-building events where my wife features prominently. I'm scrolling through these photos during my lunch break when my phone rings. Pete. "Please tell me you're not stalking your wife's boss on social media," he says without preamble. "I'm conducting research." That's what every stalker says right before they end up on the evening news. Pete Morrison has been my best friend since we were roommates at Virginia Tech. He's a software developer, divorced, and the only person I know who's more cynical about relationships than I'm becoming. He's also the only person who can call me on my bullshit without me hanging up on him. "I found something," I tell him. "Please tell me it's not a corpse." "Better." "I found proof." I tell him about the screenshot, about the visible messages, about the pattern I've been tracking. Late nights that coincide with Greg's client dinners, sudden interest in clothes and makeup that coincides with Sterling's increased marketing budget, the way she says his name with a little smile, like it's a private joke. "So what are you gonna do?" Pete asks. "I don't know yet. But I'm done being the punchline. That evening, Haley comes home at 11:30. She's wearing the dress from Greg's message. Black, expensive, the kind that requires professional dry cleaning. Her makeup is smudged, her hair slightly messed. She looks like a woman who's been having the kind of evening I haven't given her in months. "How was dinner with the girls?" I ask from the living room couch. She freezes in the hallway. "Fine. Good. You know how it is." "Actually, I don't." "Tell me." She studies my face, looking for the trap. "We went to Meridian, like I said. Had some wine, talked about work, girl stuff." "What did you eat?" "What?" "At dinner." "What did you order?" The pause is too long. "The salmon, I think." "I don't really remember." "We had a lot of wine." I nod like this makes perfect sense. Like I didn't call Meridian this afternoon and confirm they don't serve salmon on Tuesday nights. Like I didn't drive by the restaurant and notice her car wasn't in the parking lot. Like I'm still the trusting husband who doesn't ask follow-up questions. "I'm going to bed," she says. "I'll be up in a minute." But we both know I won't be. I haven't slept in our bed in 2 weeks. Officially, it's because of my back. Unofficially, it's because I can't stand the smell of her lies on the pillowcases. I wait until I hear the shower running, then I do something I never thought I'd do. I go through her purse. Her phone is password protected, but her wallet tells a different story. Dinner receipt from Antonio's, the Italian place across town, definitely not Meridian. Table for two, 2 glasses of wine, 2 entrees, 1 dessert to share. Total, $127.43. Paid in cash, which means no credit card trail. But here's the interesting part. There's a second receipt underneath. Lingerie store at the mall. $89.50 for something called a midnight romance set. Purchased yesterday, around the time I was at work, thinking my wife was at her office doing legitimate PR work. I photograph both receipts with my phone, then put everything back exactly as I found it. Document everything, trust nothing to memory. The shower is still running. I can hear Haley singing, something she hasn't done at home in months. She sounds happy, relaxed, the way she used to sound with me. My phone buzzes. Text message from an unknown number. "Your wife looked beautiful tonight. You're a lucky man." I stare at the screen for a long moment. Then I save the number and type back, "Who is this?" No response, but I don't need one. I know exactly who it is, and more importantly, I know he's stupid enough to text me from his personal phone. Greg Pumphrey just made his first real mistake. The shower stops. I delete the message thread and head to my office, closing the door behind me. I sit at my computer and open a new document. At the top, I type, "Project Scorn, Phase 1. Then I start planning. The next morning, Haley is in full performance mode. She makes coffee, asks about my day, even kisses my cheek before leaving for work. It's like she's trying to convince herself that everything is normal, that she's still the good wife, that whatever happened last night was just a momentary lapse in judgment. I let her perform. I smile and drink the coffee and pretend I don't notice she's wearing the new lingerie under her work clothes. After she leaves, I call in sick to work. First time in 3 years, but my supervisor doesn't question it. I have a reputation for reliability, for being the guy who shows up even when he probably shouldn't. Today, I'm cashing in that goodwill for something more important than fixing other people's engineering problems. I drive to the Riverside Athletic Club. Getting inside is easier than I expected. I tell the receptionist I'm thinking about joining, that my wife recommended the place after hearing about it from her boss. I mention Greg's name, describe him as the guy with the BMW, and suddenly I'm getting the full tour. The club is everything I expected: gleaming equipment, towel service, a juice bar that probably costs more per smoothie than I spend on lunch in a week. My tour guide, a young trainer named Kyle, is enthusiastic about the facilities and eager to sign up a new member. "Your wife's boss, you said?" "Greg Pumphrey." "That's right. You know him?" Kyle's expression shifts slightly. "Oh yeah, Mr. Pumphrey. He's here most mornings, usually brings guests." The way he says guests tells me everything I need to know. Female guests? Kyle glances around, then lowers his voice. Look, it's not really my business, but yeah. Different women, usually during lunch hours. He has them sign in as his personal training clients. He makes air quotes. But they're not exactly here for the workout, if you know what I mean. I know exactly what he means. He here today? Should be. Tuesday is his regular day. Usually shows up around noon with whoever he's training that week. I check my watch. 11:45. You know what, Kyle? I think I'd like to see the facilities in action before I commit. Mind if I hang around for a few minutes? Sure thing. Can I get you a protein shake while you wait? That would be great. I position myself at the juice bar with a clear view of the entrance. At 12:03, Greg Pumphrey walks through the door like he owns the place. He's everything I expected. Tall, artificially tan, wearing workout clothes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. His hair is perfectly styled despite the fact that he's supposedly here to exercise. And walking beside him, laughing at something he said, is my wife. She's wearing yoga pants and a sports bra that definitely wasn't in her gym bag this morning. Her hair is pulled back in a ponytail, and she's carrying a water bottle with the Sterling Communications logo. She looks comfortable here, familiar with the routine. This isn't her first visit. I watch them head toward the private training rooms in the back. Kyle notices my expression. You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that, I say. Actually, you know what? I think I've seen enough. This place isn't really for me. I leave my protein shake half finished and walk out to my car. But I don't drive away. Instead, I park across the street and wait. I have nowhere else to be, and suddenly I have all the time in the world to document my wife's afternoon activities. They emerge an hour and a half later, both looking like they've had quite a workout. Greg's hand is on the small of Haley's back as they walk to their cars. She's parked next to his BMW, a coincidence that would be touching if it weren't so calculated. He says something that makes her laugh, then kisses her. Not on the cheek. Not a friendly goodbye. A real kiss. The kind that says, "See you tonight," and "I can't wait," and "Your husband is an idiot." I take pictures with my phone, lots of them, from multiple angles. Then I drive home and upload everything to my computer. The receipts, the photos, the timeline I've been building. I create a folder called Evidence and start organizing it by date. My phone rings. Haley. Hey, babe. I'm going to be late tonight. Client emergency. What kind of emergency? Boring PR stuff. Crisis management. You know how it is. Right. Crisis management. Will Greg be there too? Another pause. Probably. It's his client. Of course it is. Well, don't work too hard. I won't. Love you. She hangs up before I can respond, which is probably for the best, because I'm not sure what I would have said. I sit in my office staring at the evidence I've collected, and I realize something has changed. The hurt is still there, but it's different now. Sharper, more focused, less like grief and more like anger. My wife thinks I'm stupid. Greg thinks I'm irrelevant. They're both about to learn how wrong they are. I open a new browser window and start researching social media management tools. If Haley wants to live her life online, that's fine. But she's about to discover that the internet is a very public place, and some secrets are too big to keep private. Time for phase 2. The beautiful thing about being underestimated is that people stop watching their backs around you. They get comfortable, sloppy, confident that you're too weak or too stupid to fight back. Greg and Haley had gotten very comfortable. That was about to change. I spent the next week in what Pete later called my supervillain phase. Every morning, I'd get up at 5, make coffee, and sit in my office planning their destruction with the same methodical precision I used to design bridge supports. The only difference was that this time, I was the one planning the collapse. My first target was their routine. For the past month, I'd been tracking their patterns. Tuesday afternoons at the gym, Thursday client dinners that lasted until midnight, weekend work emergencies that coincided with Rachel Pumphrey's charity events. They had a system, and like all systems, it had vulnerabilities. The vulnerability I chose was Greg's ego. See, Greg Pumphrey was the kind of man who posted workout videos on Instagram. Not professional fitness content, mind you, but shirtless selfies with captions like, "Never skip chest day," and "Dedication pays off." His social media presence was a masterclass in middle-aged desperation, all expensive watches and protein shakes, and carefully angled photos of his BMW. What Greg didn't realize was that his Instagram account was connected to his LinkedIn profile, which listed his work email, which followed a predictable pattern that let me guess his personal email, which led me to his Facebook account, which was linked to his Spotify, which gave me access to his location data. The digital age makes stalking so much more efficient. On Thursday morning, while Haley was in the shower, I implemented Phase 2 of Project Scorn. I created a fake Instagram account using photos of an attractive brunette I found on a stock photo site. Professional headshots, the kind that suggested success and sophistication. I gave her the name Victoria Sterling, close enough to his company name to seem like a potential client, classy enough to catch his attention. Then I started following Greg's account. Within 6 hours, he'd followed me back and sent a direct message. "Love your content. Are you in the Baltimore area?" Men are so predictable. I spent the next 2 days building Victoria's online presence. A few carefully curated posts about business and travel, some professional photos in expensive locations, the kind of lifestyle content that would appeal to a man like Greg. I even gave her a backstory. Marketing executive from DC, recently divorced, looking for new opportunities in Baltimore. Greg took the bait like a starving fish. By Saturday, he was sending increasingly flirtatious messages. By Sunday, he was asking Victoria to meet for drinks. By Monday, they had a date scheduled for Tuesday night. The same Tuesday night Haley had told me she was working late on a big presentation. The irony was delicious. Tuesday afternoon, I parked outside Antonio's restaurant at 6 p.m. Greg arrived first, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. He'd chosen a corner table with a view of the entrance, checking his phone every 30 seconds like a teenager waiting for his prom date. Haley arrived at 6:15, wearing a red dress I'd never seen before. She looked beautiful, confident, like a woman meeting her lover for a romantic dinner. She kissed Greg hello, a quick peck that suggested familiarity, comfort, the kind of casual intimacy that develops over time. I took pictures through the restaurant window, then settled in to wait. At 6:30, I sent Greg a message from Victoria's account. "Running a few minutes late. Traffic is terrible. Order me a wine?" I watched him read the message, watched his face change as he realized what was happening. He showed the phone to Haley, and I saw her expression shift from confusion to understanding to something that looked like panic. They were trapped. Greg had told his wife he was working late. Haley had told me the same thing. But here they were, on what was clearly a romantic date, and Greg's other woman was about to walk through the door. Except, of course, Victoria Sterling didn't exist. I sent another message. "Actually, change of plans." Something came up. Rain check? Greg's relief was visible from across the street, but the damage was done. The evening was ruined, the mood shattered. They finished their meal quickly, barely speaking, and left separately. Greg looked paranoid, constantly checking his phone. Haley looked angry. Perfect. The next morning, Haley was quiet over breakfast. She kept glancing at her phone, frowning at whatever she was reading. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine. Just work stuff. Anything I can help with?" She looked at me sharply, as if trying to determine whether the question was innocent or loaded. "It's nothing. Just some confusion about a client meeting." "Greg having problems?" Another sharp look. "Why would you ask that?" "You mentioned it was work stuff." He's your boss, right? If there's confusion about a client meeting, it probably involves him. She relaxed slightly. Right. Yes, just some scheduling issues. I nodded sympathetically and went back to my coffee. Inside, I was smiling. The first crack in their foundation had appeared, and I'd barely gotten started. That afternoon, I escalated. Using Victoria's account, I sent Greg another message. Sorry about last night. My ex showed up unexpectedly. Dinner tonight instead? This time, Greg was more cautious. Can we do Thursday? Tuesday was complicated. Of course, looking forward to meeting you. Then I waited. Thursday evening, Greg arrived at the restaurant we'd agreed on, Meridian, the same place Haley had lied about visiting. He chose a table near the bar, ordered a drink, and settled in to wait for his fake date. I let him sit there for an hour. Every 15 minutes, I sent an apologetic message. So sorry, running late. Then, traffic is insane. Then, almost there, promise. I watched from my car as Greg grew increasingly agitated. He ordered another drink, then another. He kept checking his appearance in his phone's camera, adjusting his tie, running his hands through his hair. Other diners began to notice the man drinking alone, constantly checking his phone, clearly stood up. Finally, at 9 p.m., I sent the final message. I'm so sorry, but I can't make it. Family emergency. Maybe we should take a break from trying to meet up. Greg's response was immediate. Is everything okay? Can I help somehow? Such a caring, considerate man. No wonder my wife fell for his charms. I didn't respond. Instead, I deleted Victoria Sterling's account entirely, erasing her digital existence as completely as if she'd never been born. The next morning, Pete called. You've been quiet lately. Should I be worried? Depends. How do you feel about accessory charges? Jesus, Eric. What are you doing? I told him about Victoria, about the restaurant surveillance, about the careful psychological pressure I was applying to Greg's routine. Pete listened in silence until I finished. You realize you're becoming the villain in this story, right? Good. Villains get things done. Villains also get restraining orders, and therapy, lots of therapy, only if they get caught. Eric, listen to me. I know you're hurt. I know you're angry, but this isn't you. You're right, I said. The old me would have filed for divorce quietly, split everything 50-50, and spent the next 10 years paying alimony to fund her lifestyle with Greg. The old me would have been the good guy, the understanding husband, the mature adult who handled things responsibly. And what's wrong with that? The old me was a sucker, Pete. The old me got played. The new me? I looked at the evidence files on my computer, at the timeline I'd constructed, at the careful plans I'd laid out for the coming weeks. The new me is going to win. Pete sighed. Just try not to do anything that'll get you arrested, okay? I'm not going to break any laws. That's not what I'm worried about. After I hung up, I sat in my office and considered his words. Was I becoming the villain? Maybe. But if that's what it took to stop being the victim, I could live with that. My phone buzzed. Text from Haley. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. I smiled and typed back. No problem. Love you. Then I opened my laptop and began planning Phase 3. If Haley and Greg wanted to play games, I was happy to oblige. But they were about to learn that I was much better at this than they thought. After all, I'd had excellent teachers. By the third week of my campaign, Greg Pumphrey was starting to crack. I could see it in his social media posts, which had become erratic and paranoid. Instead of his usual gym selfies and motivational quotes, he was posting vague complaints about fake people and games people play. His Instagram stories showed him at bars alone, drinking expensive whiskey and staring into the camera with the hollow expression of a man who couldn't figure out how his perfect life had started falling apart. Haley was showing stress too, though she was better at hiding it. She'd started double-checking locks, looking over her shoulder in parking lots, asking seemingly casual questions about my day that felt more like interrogations. The confident woman who'd publicly mocked my anniversary gift was being replaced by someone jumpy and suspicious. Good. They were finally paying attention. Phase 3 began with a simple observation. Greg's BMW was his pride and joy. He posted pictures of it constantly, detailed its maintenance schedule on social media, and parked it in the same spot at the gym every Tuesday and Thursday. He treated that car like some men treat their children, with obsessive care and protective pride, which made it the perfect target. I didn't damage the car. That would have been illegal, and I'd promised Pete I wouldn't break any laws. Instead, I did something much more psychologically effective. I made Greg think someone else was damaging it. It started small. On Tuesday morning, while Greg and Haley were inside the gym doing whatever they called exercise, I placed a small piece of duct tape over his rear license plate. Not covering the numbers, just a corner, like someone had tried to obscure it and failed. Then I left a note under his windshield wiper. Nice car. Would hate to see something happen to it. I watched from across the street as Greg discovered the note. His reaction was everything I'd hoped for. Confusion, anger, and most importantly, fear. He looked around the parking lot like he expected to see someone watching him, then carefully removed the tape and crumpled the note. The next Thursday, I escalated. This time I loosened his valve caps just enough to cause a slow air leak. Not enough to be dangerous, but enough to make his tires look slightly flat by the end of his workout. I left another note. You're being watched. Greg's paranoia was now visible from space. He started parking in different spots, arriving at different times, looking over his shoulder constantly. His Instagram posts became increasingly erratic, full of complaints about psychos and stalkers and people with too much time on their hands. The irony was beautiful. But the real breakthrough came when I realized Greg's paranoia was affecting his relationship with Haley. They'd started arguing in public, their body language tense and suspicious. I could see it during their gym sessions. Instead of the relaxed intimacy they'd displayed before, they looked like two people constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's when I decided to give them something real to worry about. On a Thursday evening, while they were at another client dinner, I drove to Greg's house in Harbor Heights. Rachel's Mercedes was in the driveway, which meant she was home alone while her husband was out cheating on her with my wife. I felt a moment of sympathy for her. She was as much a victim in this as I was, which gave me an idea. I didn't approach the house directly. Instead, I parked 2 streets over and walked through the neighborhood like I belonged there. Harbor Heights was the kind of place where everyone had security systems and Ring doorbells, but it was also the kind of place where people felt safe enough to leave their windows open on pleasant evenings. Rachel was in her living room, visible through the large front window, watching television alone. She looked exactly like her social media photos, blonde, thin, expensively dressed even at home. But there was something sad about the scene. A woman in a mansion, surrounded by luxury, spending another evening alone while her husband was out working. I took out my phone and called the house. The number was listed online because Greg was the kind of man who thought having an unlisted number was for paranoid people. Rachel answered on the 3rd ring. Hello? Mrs. Pumphrey? This is Detective Williams with Baltimore County Police. I deepened my voice, made it sound official. I'm calling about your husband's vehicle. His vehicle? What about it? We've had reports of suspicious activity around a BMW with his license plate. Has he mentioned anything unusual lately? Anyone following him, strange notes, anything like that? There was a long pause. Actually, yes. He has been acting strange lately, paranoid. He thinks someone's been messing with his car. I see. Has he mentioned why someone might be targeting him? Another pause, longer this time. No, he just says it's probably some random crazy person. Ma'am, in my experience, this kind of harassment is usually personal. Someone who feels wronged, betrayed, someone looking for revenge. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything, ma'am. But you might want to have a conversation with your husband about whether there's anything in his recent behavior that might have upset someone. Anyone he's been spending time with. Any relationships that might be causing problems. Relationships? I've said too much already. Just have that conversation, Mrs. Pumphrey. And if your husband receives any more threats, make sure he reports them immediately. I hung up and walked back to my car, smiling. By the time Greg got home from his romantic dinner with my wife, Rachel would be waiting with questions he couldn't answer without admitting to the affair. The next morning, Haley was a wreck. She'd received a call from Greg at midnight. I could hear him shouting through the phone from my office down the hall. She spent an hour in the bathroom after the call, and when she emerged, her eyes were red and her hands were shaking. "Everything okay?" I asked over breakfast. "Fine. Just some drama at work." "What kind of drama?" She looked at me suspiciously, as if trying to determine whether I knew more than I was letting on. "Greg's having some personal problems. His wife thinks she's asking questions about his schedule. That's tough. Marriage problems can really affect work performance." "It's not marriage problems," she said quickly. "She's just being paranoid." Suspicious for no reason. Right. No reason at all. The look she gave me could have frozen water. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just that wives don't usually get suspicious without some kind of trigger. Maybe she found something, or someone told her something. Someone like who? I shrugged. Could be anyone. Neighbor who saw him somewhere he shouldn't be. Friend who noticed something off. The internet makes it pretty easy to track people these days. Haley's face went pale. What do you mean? Social media, GPS data, credit card records. If someone really wanted to track another person's movements, document their activities, it wouldn't be that hard. Especially if that person was careless about their digital footprint. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the wheels turning. Was I threatening her? Did I know something? Was I the one causing Greg's problems? "You've been acting strange lately," she said. "Have I?" "Different. Like you're planning something." I smiled and finished my coffee. "The only thing I'm planning is getting to work on time. Speaking of which, I should go. Tell Greg I hope his personal problems work themselves out." I kissed her cheek and left for work, but not before I saw her grab her phone and start typing frantically. That afternoon, Pete called. "Please tell me you're not impersonating police officers." "What gave you that idea?" "The fact that you're avoiding the question." "I may have made a phone call." "Jesus, Eric, do you want to go to prison?" "Relax. I didn't identify myself as a specific officer or department. I just said I was Detective Williams. For all anyone knows, I'm a private detective. That's not how the law works. The law is the least of my problems right now." "What's that supposed to mean?" I told him about Haley's reaction that morning, about the questions she was asking, about the way she'd looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. "She's starting to suspect," I said. "Good. Maybe she'll confess and you can end this insanity before it gets worse. Or maybe she'll try to cover her tracks better. Maybe she and Greg will get more careful, more secretive. And that would be bad because I'm not done yet." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Pete said, "What's the end game here, Eric? What do you actually want?" It was a good question. What did I want? At first, I'd just wanted them to suffer the way I was suffering. I'd wanted to disrupt their comfortable routine, make them feel paranoid and uncertain. But somewhere along the way, my goals had evolved. "I want them to destroy themselves," I said. "I want Greg's marriage to implode. I want Haley's reputation to crumble. I want them both to lose everything they care about, the same way they made me lose everything I cared about." "And then what?" "Then I win." "That's not an end game, Eric. That's just revenge. Sometimes revenge is enough." After I hung up, I sat in my office and considered Pete's question. What was my end game? How did this story end? The answer came to me as I was looking at the evidence files on my computer, at the photographs and screenshots and carefully documented timeline of betrayal. I knew exactly how this ended. It ended with the truth. All of it. Every lie, every deception, every moment of their affair laid out in excruciating detail for the world to see. Not through illegal means or criminal behavior, but through the very tools they'd used against me. Social media, public exposure, the court of public opinion. They'd made my private pain into public entertainment. Now I was going to return the favor. Phase 4 was about to begin. The final phase of my plan required precision timing and a deep understanding of human psychology. Specifically, the psychology of people who live their lives online, who measure their worth in likes and shares, who've built their identities on carefully curated public personas. People like my wife and her lover. I spent a week preparing what I came to think of as the reveal, a comprehensive social media campaign that would expose every detail of Greg and Haley's affair using their own digital footprints against them. No illegal hacking, no stolen information, just a masterful compilation of publicly available data and their own careless mistakes. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. I didn't need to break into their phones or hire private investigators. They documented their entire affair themselves, posting location tags and timestamps and photos that, when assembled correctly, told a complete story of betrayal and deception. I started with a new social media account under my own name, Eric Dalton, faithful husband, wronged man, public victim. The bio was simple: 10 years of marriage. Thought I knew my wife. I was wrong. The first post went live on a Thursday evening, while Greg and Haley were at another client dinner. It was a simple side-by-side comparison. Haley's text to me saying she was working late on presentations next to her Instagram story. From the same time, showing her at an expensive restaurant with a glass of wine and the caption, "Finally relaxing after a long day." The post included a timestamp showing the messages were sent within minutes of each other. I captioned it, "When your wife says she's working late, but social media tells a different story." Anyone else's spouse this creative with the truth? Within an hour, the post had 50 shares and 100 comments. Friends, neighbors, co-workers, people who'd seen Haley's original post mocking my anniversary gift, were suddenly very interested in this new narrative. But I was just getting started. The second post went live Friday morning, a compilation of Greg's Instagram posts from the past 3 months, cross-referenced with Haley's location data from her own social media. Gym selfies posted at the exact same time as her workout photos. Restaurant check-ins that matched her business dinner posts. Hotel photos from Greg's business trips that coincided with Haley's girls' weekends. The pattern was undeniable. "Interesting how my wife's schedule matches her boss's social media activity," I captioned. "Almost like they're spending a lot of time together." What are the odds? This post exploded, 300 shares in the first 2 hours. Comments from people I hadn't spoken to in years, neighbors I barely knew, co-workers from both my job and Haley's. The story was spreading faster than I'd anticipated. By Friday afternoon, Haley was getting phone calls. I could hear her in the kitchen, speaking in hushed, frantic tones to someone, probably Greg, possibly her friends, maybe her mother. Her voice kept rising despite her attempts to stay quiet. "I don't know how he found out," she was saying. "He's posting everything online. Everyone can see it. Good, let everyone see it." The third post went live Friday evening. The restaurant receipts I'd found in her purse, photographed and uploaded with a detailed breakdown of dates, times, and locations. Each receipt was paired with her corresponding lie to me: the fake work emergencies, the fictional girls' nights, the elaborate deceptions she'd constructed to cover her tracks. "Marriage pro tip," I captioned. "If you're going to lie about where you're spending your evenings, don't keep the receipts in your purse." Also, Antonio's doesn't serve salmon on Tuesday nights. Just saying. This post pushed the story into viral territory. Local news outlets started picking it up. Bloggers began writing about the Baltimore betrayal. Someone created a hashtag Scorn Protocol. Saturday morning, Haley confronted me directly. "You need to stop," she said, standing in my office doorway like an avenging angel in yoga pants. "This is insane. You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" Because from where I'm sitting, I'm not the one who looks embarrassed. "Eric, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can fix this." "Fix what, exactly?" "Our marriage. Whatever this is between us." I turned away from my computer to look at her directly. "There is no us, Haley. There hasn't been for months, maybe longer." "That's not true." "Isn't it? When's the last time you looked at me like you actually wanted to be in the same room? When's the last time you asked about my day and cared about the answer? When's the last time you treated me like a husband instead of an inconvenience?" She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. We both knew the answer. "I made mistakes," she said finally. "But this isn't the way to handle it." "What would be the right way?" "Quiet divorce proceedings while you and Greg continue your affair in secret? Splitting our assets 50-50 while you move in with your boss? Letting you walk away with your reputation intact while I'm left looking like the fool who never saw it coming?" "You're not a fool." "No, I'm not. Which is why I'm not handling this the way you expected." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to process this new version of her husband. The doormat was gone. The pushover who accepted public humiliation and private betrayal had been replaced by someone harder, smarter, more dangerous. "Greg's wife knows," she said quietly. I figured she would, eventually. "She's filing for divorce. She's going to take everything. Good for her. His career is over. Sterling Communications is letting him go. The scandal is too much. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. What about my career? My reputation?" I smiled, and I could see her flinch at the expression. "What about it? You're destroying my life." "No, Haley. I'm just revealing it. There's a difference." She left without another word, and I heard her making phone calls in the next room. Frantic, desperate calls to friends, family, anyone who might help her contain the damage. But it was too late for damage control. The story had taken on a life of its own. The fourth and final post went live Sunday evening. It was the masterpiece I'd been building toward, a complete timeline of their affair, documented with screenshots, photos, receipts, and social media posts. Every lie, every deception, every moment of betrayal laid out in chronological order with timestamps and GPS data. The post was titled "The Scorn Protocol, a Case Study in Modern Adultery." "For anyone following this story," I wrote, "here's the complete timeline of how my wife and her boss conducted their affair while lying to their spouses, their friends, and their employers. All information compiled from publicly available social media posts and documented evidence. No laws broken, no privacy violated, just the truth, presented clearly and completely." The post included everything: Greg's fake Instagram persona, Haley's elaborate lies about working late, their pattern of meeting at hotels and restaurants while their spouses thought they were working. I'd even included screenshots of Greg's direct messages to the fake Victoria Sterling account, showing his willingness to cheat on both his wife and his mistress. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The post was shared thousands of times within hours. News outlets picked up the story. Social media influencers started discussing it. Someone created a documentary-style video using my timeline and screenshots. Greg and Haley had become a cautionary tale about infidelity in the digital age. Monday morning, Pete called. "Jesus Christ, Eric. Do you know what you've done? I've told the truth. You've destroyed two people's lives. They destroyed their own lives. I just documented it. The whole internet is talking about this. It's everywhere." "Good. Maybe the next married couple thinking about having an affair will remember Greg and Haley and think twice. What happens now? I looked around my office, at the evidence files I no longer needed, at the timeline that had consumed my life for the past month. Now I move on. That's it? That's it. They're finished. Greg's career is over, his marriage is over, his reputation is destroyed. Haley's facing the same consequences. They'll probably end up together, but they'll be starting from nothing. No money, no jobs, no friends, no social standing. And you're okay with that? I'm more than okay with it. I'm satisfied. It was true. The anger that had been driving me for weeks was gone, replaced by a calm sense of completion. I'd set out to expose their affair and destroy their comfortable lives, and I'd succeeded beyond my wildest expectations. The scorn protocol was complete. 3 days after my final post went viral, Greg Pumphrey made the mistake of trying to fight back. It started with a lawyer's letter, a cease and desist demanding I remove all posts about him and his private affairs. The letter threatened legal action for defamation, harassment, and invasion of privacy. It was printed on expensive letterhead and written in the kind of legal language designed to intimidate ordinary people into compliance. Greg had forgotten that I wasn't ordinary people anymore. I photographed the letter and posted it online with a detailed response explaining why every word of it was legally meaningless. All my information had been gathered from public sources or my own observations. I hadn't hacked anything, stolen anything, or violated anyone's actual privacy. I'd simply connected dots that were already visible to anyone paying attention. Interesting legal strategy, I captioned the post. Threaten the victim for exposing the crime. Let's see how that works out. The post got more attention than any of my previous ones. Legal experts weighed in, explaining why Greg's threats were toothless. Journalists started investigating the story more deeply. Someone found out that Greg had used company resources to fund his affair. Sterling Communications' corporate credit card for hotel rooms, business dinners that were actually romantic dates, travel expenses for trips where he'd met my wife. By Thursday, Greg was unemployed and facing potential criminal charges for embezzlement. That's when he decided to confront me directly. I was leaving my office building at 6 p.m. when I saw him waiting by my car. He looked terrible, unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes, his usual polished appearance replaced by the haggard look of a man whose life had imploded in spectacular fashion. His BMW was gone, probably repossessed, and he was driving a beat-up Honda that looked like it belonged to someone's teenager. "We need to talk," he said as I approached. "Do we? You've made your point. You've destroyed my marriage, my career, my reputation. What more do you want?" I unlocked my car and opened the door. "Nothing. I'm done." "Then why won't you stop posting about me?" "I haven't posted about you in 3 days. But people are still sharing the old posts, still commenting, still spreading the story." I looked at him with something approaching pity. "That's how the internet works, Greg. Once something goes viral, it takes on a life of its own. You can't control it any more than you could control yourself around my wife." His face flushed red. "You think you're so smart, don't you? So righteous. But you're just a pathetic little man who couldn't keep his wife satisfied." "Maybe. But I'm a pathetic little man whose wife is about to lose her job, whose lover is facing criminal charges, and whose marriage is over. While you're a pathetic middle-aged man who threw away everything for a few months of sneaking around like a teenager." "She came to me," he said. "Haley was unhappy long before I came along. You drove her away with your boring job and your cheap gifts and your complete lack of ambition. You're probably right. But here's the thing, Greg. I don't care anymore. You can have her. In fact, you're going to have her, because nobody else will want either of you after this." He stepped closer, and I could smell alcohol on his breath. "You ruined my life." "No, I documented your choices. There's a difference. I could destroy you right now, right here in this parking garage. Who would care? Probably nobody, but you won't. What makes you so sure? I smiled. Because destroying me won't fix your problems. Your wife will still divorce you. Sterling Communications will still press charges. The internet will still remember your name. And Haley will still be a woman who cheated on her husband with a man who got fired for embezzlement. He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him processing the truth of what I'd said. Violence wouldn't solve anything. The damage was done, permanent and irreversible. Besides, I added, you're not a destroy, Greg. You're just a middle-aged man who thought he was smarter than everyone else and got caught being stupid. Violence requires a different kind of stupidity than adultery. He deflated like a punctured balloon. The fight went out of him all at once, leaving behind just a broken man in a parking garage, facing the consequences of his own choices. What am I supposed to do now? He asked. That's not my problem anymore. I got in my car and drove away, leaving him standing there in the dim, fluorescent light of the parking garage. In my rearview mirror, I watched him get smaller and smaller until he disappeared entirely. That night, Haley came home for the last time. She'd been staying with friends since the story broke, avoiding the reporters who'd been calling and the neighbors who'd been staring. But she needed to collect her things, and she'd probably hoped I wouldn't be there. I was sitting in the living room when she walked in, and the sound of her key in the lock felt like the end of an era. She looked exhausted, defeated, like a woman who'd gambled everything and lost. I'm just here for my clothes, she said without looking at me. Take whatever you want. She started toward the stairs, then stopped. Was it worth it? Destroying everything we had? We didn't have anything, Haley. We had a performance. A social media marriage built on lies and appearances and mutual contempt. I just stopped pretending it was real. We could have worked it out, gone to counseling, fixed things. Could we? When was the last time you looked at me and felt anything other than disappointment? When was the last time I was anything more to you than an obstacle to the life you thought you deserved? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I loved you, she said finally. No, you loved the idea of being married. You loved having someone to pay half the bills and provide stability while you figured out what you really wanted, but you never loved me, not the real me. That's not true. Isn't it? Name one thing about me that you actually like. One thing that isn't related to what I provide or how I make you look or what I can do for you. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. She opened her mouth several times to respond, then closed it again. We both knew she couldn't answer the question. I'll have the divorce papers filed next week, I said. You can have whatever you want from the house. I don't care about any of it anymore. She nodded and went upstairs. I could hear her moving around in our bedroom, packing clothes and personal items. After an hour, she came back down with 2 suitcases and a box of photographs. For what it's worth, she said at the door, I'm sorry it ended this way. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. She left without another word, and I heard her car pull out of the driveway for the last time. I sat in the quiet house, surrounded by the remnants of a marriage that had ended long before I'd admitted it to myself, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. My phone buzzed. Text from Pete. Saw the news about Greg's arrest. You okay? I typed back. Never better. And for the first time in a very long time, that was actually true. The next morning, I deleted all my social media accounts. The story would continue without me. The internet had taken ownership of Greg and Haley's downfall, turning them into a cautionary tale about digital age infidelity. But I was done being the narrator of their destruction. I had my own life to rebuild. 6 months later, I ran into Rachel Pumphrey at a coffee shop downtown. She was sitting alone, reading a book, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen her in the society photos from her married life. She noticed me and waved me over. Eric, right? Greg's, my ex-husband's colleague's husband? That's one way to put it. She smiled. I wanted to thank you. For what? For setting me free. I spent 15 years married to a man who saw me as a trophy, who cheated constantly, who made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting what everyone else could see. Your posts gave me the evidence I needed to finally leave. I'm glad something good came out of it. More than you know, I got everything in the divorce. The house, the investments, even his precious BMW. And I'm happier now than I've been in years. She looked it too. The brittle socialite facade was gone, replaced by someone who seemed genuinely content. What about you? She asked. How are you doing? Better. Different, but better. Different how? I thought about it for a moment. I used to think being the good guy meant accepting whatever people did to me. Turning the other cheek, taking the high road, being the bigger person. But sometimes the high road just leads to being walked on. And now? Now I know the difference between being good and being weak, between being kind and being a doormat, between forgiveness and enabling. She nodded. Greg and Haley, are they together, as far as I know, living in a studio apartment across town, both working retail jobs, both basically unemployable in their former careers. They got what they wanted, each other. They just didn't expect it to come with consequences. Do you ever regret it? The way you handled things? I considered the question seriously. Did I regret exposing their affair so publicly, so thoroughly, so devastatingly? Did I regret becoming the kind of man who fought back instead of rolling over? No, I said finally. I regret letting it go on as long as I did. I regret being naive enough to think loyalty and honesty mattered to people who had neither. But I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret winning. Rachel smiled. Good for you. We talked for a few more minutes, two survivors of other people's selfishness, two people who'd learned that sometimes the only way to stop being a victim is to refuse to play the role anymore. When we parted ways, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Pride in who I'd become. That evening, I was cleaning out my office when I found the folder labeled Project Scorn, Phase 1. I sat there for a moment, remembering the man who'd created that file, the hurt and angry husband who'd decided to fight back against people who thought he was too weak to matter. I deleted the folder without opening it. The Scorn protocol was over. Eric Dalton, version 2.0, was just beginning. I walked outside to check the mail and found an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, Greg and Haley at a bus stop, both looking tired and defeated, waiting for public transportation like ordinary people. On the back, someone had written, "How the mighty have fallen." I looked at the photo for a moment, then tore it up and threw it away. I didn't need reminders of their downfall. I didn't need proof of my victory. I knew who I was now, and that was enough. The sun was setting over the neighborhood, painting everything in gold and orange light. Somewhere across town, my ex-wife and her lover were probably finishing another shift at whatever retail jobs they'd managed to find, going home to their studio apartment, living with the consequences of their choices. And I was here, in the house I'd paid for, in the life I'd rebuilt, stronger and wiser, and completely at peace with the man I'd become. The good guy had learned to fight back. The victim had learned to win. And Eric Dalton had learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be destroyed by other people's selfishness. I walked back inside, closed the door behind me, and got on with the rest of my life.